Well, welcome back to the In Good Company podcast, where we believe that the best parts in business happen in good company. And this is going to be a kind of a vulnerable episode for me because I'm inviting somebody to the table that knows me probably better than any other guest that I've brought here. He knew me before I was the Mike Thomas that you see today. I had my ears pierced with these big, gaudy, very real diamond earrings and long curly hair before I started my receding hairline trend. But great guy, unbelievable friend. He is one of the guys that actually has made this entire thing possible by all that you not just taught me and spoke into me, but really your belief has gone so far for my life, for my family. Don't want to get emotional before we start, but very much appreciate this next guest. Without further ado, Dr. Todd Sodano.
Hello, Mike Thomas.
Welcome.
What a great introduction.
Yeah, man. It came from the heart. Maybe we just start here. How did we meet? Give a little bit of a rundown of, the Mike Thomas in your brain. Where did that story begin?
Well, let me start with the end first, where you think I knew you in a different life, a different chapter where you were somebody different. I don't see you that way. I see you as the guy who's always that one sitting in the front row in my class, smiling, playful, curious, attentive, inattentive. And it was always great. It was always a pleasure. And I remember seeing you in the front of our computer lab on campus, where you and your friend Jonah were seated. And I remember you sitting there, as you describe yourself accurately, with the hair, the ears, or earrings rather, and all the rest. And I thought, this guy's going to get on my nerves so fast. And pretty quickly it happened. You did something in the class, you and Jonah, where I thought, are these guys doing honest work? So I brought you guys out of the class. Probably not. I brought you guys out of the class to ask you, not interrogate you, but just to get on the same page. And whether or not you were telling the truth, I thought, I'm letting them know that they're on watch. And whatever answer you guys told me, we just became interconnected.
Yep.
So I see you as the same person I saw a number of years ago, 15 years ago at this point, probably. Yeah. Except now you're married, you're with kids, you have your own business.
Yeah.
It's incredible. You're a beast, and that's something you've called me in the past when that was in vogue.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Did I say that to you?
Many times. First couple of times I thought it was an insult, then I thought it was a compliment, and then it went back to being an insult again.
You're a beast, Sedano.
Yeah, now it sounds like an insult again.
Okay. Well, it was cool back then, I think.
Yeah. We didn't know any better. It was the 20-teens.
Speaking of cool, those glasses, brother.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
All right. One hip chick, Monroe Ave. She's got glasses for women and men and everywhere in between and on the outside. It is fantastic, this place. So I went there. This is my third pair of glasses from her, from Tamra. And my wife and I went, and I was not there looking for me. We were looking for her, for Autumn. And we go in, and she's looking through stuff. And I see Tamra opening up the drawers to show off glasses. And I see this pair. And I'm thinking, if they don't notice it, I'm not going to say anything because I'm not ready to plunk down money for this. And then at some point I say, let's look at those glasses again. And she takes them out, Tamra, and she's like, try them on. So I try them on, and both Autumn and she, wow, those look great. And I looked in the mirror and I thought, oh man, I have to get these. I'm not used to wearing glasses that stand out, but in the last few years, having shopped at One Hip Chick on Monroe Ave, again, in our neighborhood around here, it's great. That's
awesome, man. Well, you look like a beast with the glasses on, for what it's worth.
Well, now it sounds like a compliment, so I accept.
Excellent. So tell, for those that don't know, Dr. Todd Sodano.
Enough with the doctor.
What? All right. Just doctor, I won't say. For those that don't know the doctor,
right.
Just give us a rundown of your story. How did you even get in upstate New York, teaching, doing what you're doing today at St. John Fisher University? Just give us a little bit of a rundown of your story.
Okay. You're so old that when you were there, it was college. Now we are a university.
Right. Do I get to change my diploma? Can I?
Did you get a diploma?
Yeah. It says St. John Fisher College.
I just want to make sure you graduated.
Oh.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Yep.
Nope, you're SJFC forever.
Dang it.
You're old school.
Okay.
So I grew up in New Jersey, in northern New Jersey, and my first taste of upstate New York was Cornell, where my brother had been going, in Ithaca. And I'd never seen so much open space and open land before. And the university looked very much like you see in the movies, in the pictures. Just land after land after land, and just gorgeous old buildings. And it wasn't the education for me. It was the experience. It was that. I wanted to be in that place. And so I went there. I applied. I went there for 4 years. Came home to New Jersey after studying communication at Cornell. Worked in television for a few years for the National Basketball Association doing TV production.
Familiar, NBA, familiar.
Which I didn't know what TV production was until I was doing it. I felt I wasn't advancing as quickly as I would have liked as a early 20-something, right? This probably sounds familiar to you. So you pivot, you make changes. And I remember one of my producers, Rich, telling me, Sedano, you gotta give yourself options. And I had no idea what that meant, but when I said I was thinking about grad school, he's like, great, apply. I said, I don't want to go to grad school. He said, just apply. So I applied to a number of schools, got into Syracuse, the Newhouse School, the famous Newhouse School. And I took a preview day there in April of 2002.
Wow.
And it was life-changing. I sped in my car home, and I am a slow driver. I was so giddy just having this conversation with the guy who became my department chair, who became my mentor, who became my professor in a number of classes, and a good friend. And I just thought, this is where I want to be. And it felt good to be wanted by somebody else. You know, when you're stuck at work, sometimes you don't feel not necessarily appreciated, but just wanted.
Yep.
Like, is someone happy that I'm there to get work done? And so to have that at Syracuse, that really changed my life. So I earned my master's. Somewhere along the way, I enjoyed teaching more than I enjoyed the production side.
Yeah.
I was connecting with students as a liaison between the professors, for whom I was their teaching assistant, and the students, training them on camera equipment and video editing and all the rest. And so, in fact, I even borrow the phrase "all the rest" from my mentor, Bob Thompson at Syracuse. And so they told me, my mentors, Bob and others, that, hey, if you're like this, you need to get your PhD. And I thought, great, another degree. I'm already here. Big deal. It's like one-stop shopping. You know, you. But
you're also young at this point. I mean, this is not like, how old were you when you started this pursuit of hitting your PhD?
27.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started when I was 27 years old. I started the master's when I was 25.
Yeah.
And it was so naive for me to think, Mike, oh, this is easy. It's just another thing. It's another degree. Because why not? And it took over my life. It ended my social life, except for the relationship I was in. I was in another marriage before the one I'm currently in, and it locked me in. I was focused. I heard often how the attrition rate for doctoral students was 50%.
Wow.
Meaning, 1 in 2 students who pursue this are not going to finish. And I took that as a challenge. All else be damned around me.
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't particularly healthy. And then I had friends in Rochester who had said back in the day, you should move to Rochester after Syracuse, because I knew them from my Syracuse days. And I didn't know anything about St. John Fisher. But my former wife found this job posting for a video production professor at a place called St. John Fisher. I'd never heard of it. And clearly, my obvious response was, I am not qualified. I will not do this. This is insane. She said I should apply. My colleagues at Syracuse said, you're a fool not to apply, because not only will you get the job, you'll be great at it. And I remember taking the interview at Fisher thinking, I am not good at this. I don't teach production. Like, everything you have in front of you here, Mike, the cameras, the lights, the microphones, back then in 2008 when I was interviewing, I had no idea how this stuff worked. But then that department chair told me, this is about storytelling. And I thought, all right, that's something I could sort of hook into. It's less technology. Maybe the small liberal arts school down the thruway is interested in me talking about stories more than it is about pressing buttons and learning equipment. And it took me a long time until I finally pivoted my class into focusing on storytelling and not the equipment itself.
Yep.
And this is long after you left or after you graduated that I realized, no, this is storytelling. This is connecting with people. This is talking to somebody like Mike Thomas about life, about his spirituality, about his faith, about running, about everything other than the technology that we use to share those stories. It took me so long to get there.
So really you saved the best parts of your teaching for after I left.
Yeah, that usually happens with the bad students. They're the kick in the pants to
right.
You think you make the mistakes that your tennis partner makes.
Got
right?
it.
And then that Mike Thomas comes in with the scraggly hair and the earrings and all that with his punky friend Jonah and all these other people. And you think, I got this class. I'm covered. Then Mike Thomas throws up his hand or talks to somebody in class and throws you completely off.
Or I'm texting during class or whatever.
Right.
Just as an example.
Just an example. Or during a podcast interview.
Right. No, I'm not texting. I'm pulling up your questions. But yes, You
sure you're not playing the card of can I be rescued? Can someone pull the fire alarm while we're here?
His questions are right here. I promise.
Okay.
And in fact, we have so many questions and so many stories that are off of these questions that I may just go rogue, which I think would be fun for everyone. But
this is your show.
All right. So hey, fast forward. Bring us to. Well, actually, I want to sit in your journey for a second with the MBA. You talk about, because you kind of gloss over that. I think anyone listening going like, you worked with the MBA? Like talk about, is there a story from that time? I feel like I remember you telling stories of being like under Madison Square Garden, like editing stuff.
It wasn't editing, but it was live tape logging. So every game, at least back then, I don't know how they do it now with digital technology, but this was the turn of the century. This was, 99 into 2000. The Knicks, my Knicks, whom I hated in 1999, were in the NBA Finals in the strike-shortened season against the San Antonio Spurs. But by having the opportunity to go to a number of Knicks games at Madison Square Garden, I grew quite fond of them.
Yep.
And so as an entry-level employee, you're a tape logger, which is just above intern, just below production assistant. The pay was great. Coming out of college, making this money was great. The hours were a lot, which was even better. So if you surpassed 40 hours in a union gig, that this was, you were getting paid time and a half. So at that time, I thought this was glorious, watching basketball all the time. And then they said, look, all the games in these arenas have to be recorded. And then you guys, you class of tape loggers, have to go through it, type everything into our computer system in case someone needs to pull one of those clips for one of the videos they're making. For our home videos, for our live events, for our draft lottery, and so on, the live broadcasts. Anyway, so one of those places where those games are recorded was Madison Square Garden. I was working in Secaucus, New Jersey, which was 10 minutes from where I grew up in New Jersey, and I lived in my parents' house after college. When it wasn't cool to do that, when it wasn't practical, it was kind of considered a step back, almost not a failure, but you're just not as independent as your classmates who all graduated from college and have now moved to different cities and living on their own. You, Todd, you're living at home with mom and dad. I mean, I get why you're doing it. Kind of, yeah. I did kind of feel that way. I was able to save money. It afforded me grad school, right?
Yeah.
But at the time, I did think that I was a loser for doing that. And so I would go to Madison Square Garden, and I would take a car service in that the league paid for. A driver would pick me up in a town car with leather seats, water in the back seat. Wow. It was like, Uber today. It was amazing. And I remember when the driver would pick me up in front of my parents' house, my mom is so sweet. She would tell the driver, like, give him a minute, he'll be right there. As if we were getting picked up to go to the movies. Like, let me tell your friend Mike. 1 minute, he'll be right there. And
Can I get you a coffee?
Right, exactly. She's being all hospitable.
And
I'm saying, Mom, they know. They're drivers. They do this for a living. They'll be fine. And so I would go into the Madison Square Garden Arena, and I was recording this in an office, probably as big as this space is right here. I don't know, 10 feet by 10 feet. Maybe a little bit bigger, which was just outside this inner office where the legendary broadcaster Marv Albert was.
Wow.
So he would come out from time to time because he was broadcasting games. So if I got there a certain time, he would still be in his office getting ready to go on air. And I might have just said hello or something. I've always kind of taken the approach of don't be starstruck when you're doing the work.
Yeah.
If you see them on the street, I'll, yell at them, wave, right? Yeah. But if I see somebody just for it's part of my job, then I would think, let him do his work. I'll say hello and just get on with it. And it was fun, but you couldn't hear anything in the bowels of that arena. There could be 20,000 people screaming that the Knicks won. I couldn't hear any of it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was something.
And so the actual, and we don't need to stay in this, but the actual like practical work you were doing was legitimate, like wanting to rip your eyes out time stamping of this guy dunks, from 12:03 to 12:15.
Yeah. So that when I brought the tapes home, and they were cataloged and barcoded into work the next day, the video producer, Mike Thomas, who then comes in, says, what happened during the game? And then Mike looks at the tape log and says, oh, Allen Houston hit a big 30-foot three-pointer with 2 minutes to go in the game.
Yeah.
It's starred here on this handwritten tape log that this guy wrote. Awesome.
So chops it up, sends it to ESPN, or like, where does it ultimately go? Whatever.
Back then,
Knicks organization, whatever.
Back then, it stayed in the league. This was an arm of the league, NBA Entertainment. So if they were doing promos, if they were doing, as I said, home videos, live events, live broadcasts, playoffs, stuff in arena, that's where those things went.
Wow. That's awesome.
It was fun, but like anything, it was too much of something was not a good thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was there through 9/11, and I didn't love focusing too much on sports at that point. I thought my attention should be focused elsewhere on service, on working with other people.
Yeah.
And combining that with going to grad school, I thought the classroom is where I want to be.
Yeah. So let's jump to that transition moment. You go from, I got to imagine there's some people listening that maybe are in a job that maybe looks fulfilling on the outside, but maybe they're just kind of in this spot of, man, I feel like there is this new pivot for me, or this new direction for me. I have fond memories of, yes, the classes and moments were good with you, but being at a small school like a Fisher, it's like I could knock on your door. We would talk for hours on end about, Mike, you should go after this thing, man. You should pursue this. You should take an internship in New York City. You should, XYZ. I mean, I never had to slow you down from encouraging me. Like, you were always giving that energy towards, go do this thing, go pursue this thing. For someone listening that is stuck maybe in this traditional 9-to-5, or they have this degree that they went to school for, that they were all fired up to do, but now they're doing something totally different, totally outside of what they feel called to do, what advice would you have for someone like that?
Advice, let me start with, it's risky. It's tough to make that pivot. And when you have responsibilities and obligations, it's even riskier. So I appreciate that. Me going to Syracuse in 2002, I was unattached. I didn't have children. And it was a full-time job, but it didn't come with benefits. Yeah. So I didn't have to worry too much about what I was leaving behind, like retirement benefits and health benefits, because it was considered freelance, but I was still working full-time hours. And so that was a risky move to make any of those changes. The advice would be, talk to people who've done it. Talk to the Mike Thomases out there. Talk to the Todd Sodanos out there. Knock on people's doors. Get their story. Find out. Because chances are, the human condition, what we experience as people, we'd love to think we're the only ones who've experienced it. Nobody gets me, Mike, my plight. Nobody gets my story. Yeah. And then you talk to 10 people and you're like, oh, they all have the same story.
Well, we live in an age right now, and you know this in your line of work, where like the personal brand, the lone wolf solopreneur, it's like, I'm building up myself. And actually, some of the greatest things I've ever done in my life have so little to do with me. Yeah. But it's those that I've been able to lean on and build with that have really made the difference.
You should keep telling that story, because that's part of who you are. Yeah. You lift the people around you. You never seem to put the credit on you or take the credit for the great work you've done. And that ethos, that set of guiding principles, I think is really, really important for you as a as a human being, as a friend, as a business owner, as a brother, a father, a husband, all these things. I mean, those are really incredible, humble qualities to have.
Appreciate it. Yeah, and I'd love to talk about that for a second, because I had the idea of starting a podcast and doing the Content House probably 2.5 years ago. The biggest, and you can call it imposter syndrome, you can call it whatever you want. I didn't want to come across like, hey, this is all about me. I want more likes and I want more dopamine hits on my social media stuff. Like, when I grew up, matured a bit, had a family, and just started to kind of see the dynamics of life unfold and realize, turns out I really don't know what I'm doing. And
get in line, buddy.
Yeah. As that started happening, it was like, I can use that excuse for the rest of my life. That, oh, I'm not going to do this because I'm scared of what these other people are going to think about me or say about me. But then when I ultimately did it, we're now on episode 30 of this, where I've been able to help people share their stories and really just get their stories out through my network, through this platform. It does feel like some of my most meaningful work I've ever been a part of. And I'm not getting paid for this. I don't have a sponsor yet. But like, you know, we're just sharing stories. Part of the vision of this space is I want to help 1,000 people share their story by 2030. I want to get people in these doors, in this room, that are maybe in the background of their jobs or their lives. They have a story to tell, but they just don't have the confidence to tell it. And one of the things that you've done a great job of in your career is even someone that's a little bit maybe quieter than me, like a Jonah, who was a very good friend of mine, but was much more introverted than I was.
Yeah.
You still have been able to crack the code in the way in which you teach and really cultivate all different types of people, but still allow them to step up to the plate and show up as their truest self and actually deposit their absolute contribution to the world. How have you been able to do that in your teaching world with all the different types of people that you meet? How have you been able to still make time for the one individual student?
That's a loaded question. And part of the premise I don't accept. Part of the premise I reject, that that I'm good at doing that, because sometimes I don't feel that way. Sometimes I feel like I'm leaving people behind. What I don't want to do is only spotlight the high energy, either extroverts or the people who bring a certain passion that's already unlocked.
Yep.
The people who work in storytelling tend to be introverted because they like spending a lot of time with one person, right? If I were talking to you, anytime we've hung out since you've graduated, probably it's just been the two of us.
Yep.
Over a beer, over a run, over a meal, something.
Yep.
And I take as a challenge, how do I unlock that in everybody? Storytelling is universal, so how do I get to that place with everybody that they feel trustworthy, or that I feel trustworthy to them? And to answer your question then, I think more and more, and this has only been in the last 5-10 years maybe, I've made myself more vulnerable in these classes. And so when you took my classes, my goal was to be the smartest guy in the room, was to impress the hell out of you guys that you might be fun, Mike Thomas, in my class. You might be a barrel of energy and distraction and playfulness. But at the end of the day, I want you going home thinking, boy, that Sedano really knows his TV. He really knows his production, his filmmaking, and all
and
that.
You hip checked me a few times. I mean, like, you know, not reprimanded or whatever, but it's like, hey man, fall in line. Like, this is what we're doing. You can be fun, but do the assignment or whatever, right? It's like,
and that, for me, that came from grad school, and that was my own imposter syndrome.
Sure.
That someone was going to call me out for teaching frivolous things like using microphones and making videos and creating TV shows.
Yep.
And so over time, emulating other people and the way they teach and the way they interact with people, I realized vulnerability is where I wanted to go. This was an intentional move on my part, to be vulnerable in classes with students.
Yeah.
So I'm not just opening up my classes with my favorite moments from film now, as I did with you guys. It's more of I'm opening up with, these are my favorite moments because this is how it brought me to tears. This made me think of a really bad time in my life. This made me think of a really joyful time in my life. And that's the power of story. And so opening myself up to that, I think, allows me to unlock in some others that ability also. And they realize I'm not going to do that one-on-one with him, but I can mediate it. I can put that in a podcast. I can put that in a video. I remember a student who was quiet in the back of the room in our lab, making a video essay for The Little Mermaid. And this guy, Alan, wasn't saying anything the whole semester. And then he made this video essay for The Little Mermaid, a critique where he wrote a script, recorded himself delivering that script, and edited clips from the movie The Little Mermaid underneath it to support his critique. And it was amazing. And I thought, oh, it's been unlocked. Okay, there's a place for you. Alan, come right in. And that was really special. Those moments are really special. I'd love to say it's all intentional. As part of your question also, it's a lot of time, right? And we're in this, what are they calling it now? This attention economy, where your listeners are probably thinking, oh my God, they're still going on about this. This is going on forever. When's he going to take a break? Hopefully Mike is going to cut this up into 5 60-minute episodes so I don't have to listen to this long-winded, 5-hour podcast. So for teachers, for professors these days, being pulled in so many directions, it's a lot of time. It's rewarding, no doubt. I mean, this right here, this is why we do it. But it adds up. It would be very easy for me. No, it wouldn't. It could be very easy for me to say, I'm just going to go through the motions.
Oh, of course.
Here's what you need to learn. Press these buttons, Mike. Congratulations, you get an A. The next class, you'll learn other buttons to press.
Yeah.
And that's it. Or write a story. Okay, it's going to be a 5-minute film. Now make it a 10-minute film. It's double the work. No, it's not.
Yeah.
And so spending time with people, that is so, so, so critical. And it's something that I think we're lacking more and more in our culture and our society. And we need it desperately more and more. So what you're doing, you want 1,000, hours or people sitting in this chair?
1,000 stories.
I love that. And that's what you and I are doing similarly, just through different means, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, again, creating a culture, and certainly through the university and through, people taking classes, all that stuff, but creating a culture where people really do feel, I mentioned in your intro, your belief in me, right? I think there are so many. I was a youth pastor for 6 years, seeing a slew of kids being raised without their dad in their home, being raised at or below the poverty line, so their base level needs weren't met, like just all over the spectrum, right? The power of belief, just looking at someone in the eyes and saying, you can actually do this. The thing that's in you that nobody else knows. You're a great writer, or you're a great artist, or you're maybe quiet, but you've got a story to tell. Like, you can actually do this. When that unlocks for someone like the Little Mermaid story, that may have been a project in your class, but that could have unlocked an entirely new avenue for him to start a career, advance in his life, right, in a totally separate way. One of the things I want to talk about, this could be a little bit risque. I feel like college, university, has been put in question with this young generation going, dude, I'm playing video games on Twitch. People are paying me. I'm making money at 12 years old. I'm on TikTok. I'm an influencer. I'm doing this, and this. Let me make money quick. Let me go do boom, boom, boom. Do you think in 2025 that college is still necessary for people to actually get to where they want to go in their career?
To get to where they want to go in their career, maybe, maybe not. If that's the end of that sentence, then not necessarily. You don't need to go to college to pursue certain professions. I don't think it's for everybody. But I also think more and more, as people are more and more, I wouldn't say introverted, more and more reclusive, more and more not interested in connecting with people on an interpersonal level, or IRL, right? That that is where college comes in. That's where you connecting with people you've never met before, having disagreements with them, seeing their worldview, and seeing how it doesn't jive or does jive with yours is something that I think is essential.
Yep.
And an essential part of the college experience. Even for me, right? Coming to a place like St. John Fisher, I had gone to large private institutions like Cornell and Syracuse. Going to a small liberal arts college, founded in a Catholic tradition, and then seeing people like Mike Thomas, for me, that was jarring. Yeah. That was, how am I going to handle this?
Yeah.
Right? How do I wear how I feel about some of these things? How do I wear that without upsetting my students? And so college is necessary, I think, not just for the education you receive in the classes.
Right.
It's everything surrounding it. It's the experience.
Yep.
And I've used this line a lot. I use it all the time because I still believe it. It's the Mark Twain line. Don't let your schooling interfere with your education. And the schooling is, of course, the bureaucracy, the doing stuff for grades. And that's something you never put in the spotlight back on you. I don't think we ever talked about grades with you. And that's why I had probably more confidence in you and belief and faith in you than perhaps some other students. Because for you, it was never about the grade.
Yeah.
It was never, I'm getting a 92. Is there anything I can do to bring that up to a 93? I remember we were taking a trip to New York City a year after you and I and a number of your classmates took the same trip to New York City the year before. And it was a separate class that I was taking this following year. And you reached out. You wanted to take this trip. And in my heart of hearts, my first thought, which I stand by as the correct one, is no, Mike Thomas should not go on this trip. It's the last thing I need is to worry about Mike Thomas for another long weekend.
In New York City.
Yeah. In
Home Alone, part 5. Yeah, 7, whatever part.
Right, exactly. So we figured out a way that you would be going in a way that would not be inappropriate. We opened it up to everyone who was available to go.
Yep.
And the people who went. And then you were there as not so much an extra, but as someone who's craving another life experience and someone who brought wisdom from the prior year's trip to that experience and someone who brought enthusiasm from the prior year's trip. And you were a great ambassador for that. And so that's the stuff that it doesn't fit on a billboard. You're not going to see that on 490. You're not going to see that in the discourse surrounding the college experience.
Yeah.
No matter what side you're on, as someone who's extolling it, saying it's necessary, college is under siege, under fire, and this is why people should go to college because it'll lead to a great career, which was your initial question. Or the other side of that, college is expensive, it's bloated, it's overinflated. There's a certain agenda, a liberal agenda that professors are putting forward. That's dangerous. That's not what I'm about. I'm interested in connecting with you guys, with the students all the time, and trying to find you where you are.
Yeah.
And that's always been my MO. Not here's my screed of all the information I need to dispense to you.
Yeah.
Maybe early on it was the first couple of years. And then it became, no, these are great people. These are people who make me feel young. These are people who have different worldviews than I do. As you said yourself, you've seen a number of people when you were a youth pastor who came from different backgrounds. And that instills a certain level of empathy. Yeah. And that's where storytelling comes in again. Everything comes back to that.
Yeah.
It doesn't come back to communication, which is, my department. It doesn't come back to technology or television or film. It's story. Yeah. It doesn't matter what the medium is. Yeah. It could be sitting around a campfire or it can be a podcast.
Yeah. And story's never been more urgent. There has never been a time in human history where every single person has essentially their own broadcast network.
Yeah.
Which is their social media
in
accounts.
Their pocket.
Right in
That's
their
amazing.
pocket. And it can be incredibly damning and scary, but also if you want to see the power of your voice, if you can remove imposter syndrome, get people around you that can bring in some of that belief, you'll be shocked at what can happen if you just pull out your phone and get your message out there with the world, you know?
And I've had imposter syndrome. Let's be clear.
For sure.
Yeah. Even the time, especially the time that I was teaching you guys.
Yeah.
In the early 2010s.
I'll never forget. How old were you when you were teaching us back in 2010?
Younger than you are right now.
So
I am older.
Yeah.
Yeah. I texted you this the other day.
That's exactly what I was just going to share. Like you basically said something like, whatever, something must have popped on Facebook or whatever it was. Oh, it's my 32nd birthday, whatever it was. And you just said, hey, I was as old as you are right now when I started teaching. Yeah. And I go, oh, so you really didn't know what you were doing? And you're like, not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. That's when I was in that in-between phase of the, I'm not young enough to be your friend as if I were a grad student when I used to teach students. And I'm not old enough yet to be that professor, that wise avuncular figure or father figure that some of them may not have.
Sure.
Especially when I taught you guys, just being a decade removed.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do remember saying that to you, that you're older now than I was when I met you guys.
That made me feel sick. So thank you for that.
Oh, so it worked.
Oh, yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah.
For some of the older audience that's listening, I've had so many stories with people who they've kind of risen the corporate ladder of their careers only to find that when they got there, it wasn't what they wanted. And so now they're in their 40s, 50s, late 30s, maybe, whatever. And they want to jump back into school maybe, or they want to, try to kind of get this reset at this new career, but they're fighting the voices and the opinions of, oh, you're too old. Like, just stay the course, just do what you've been doing. What are your thoughts on people kind of going back to school? People that, again, might be in a little bit of a later stage of life. Certainly the stuff we talked about, very different today. I have marketing classes that I look back on where I still needed a Facebook college email address to access Facebook because it just came out. Yeah. I needed my sjfc.edu and now it's Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and everything else. But we weren't even scratching the surface on Facebook ads and Google ads and all that stuff. We were talking about totally other marketing concepts, right? Yeah. So things evolve, things change. But what do you think for the older crowd? What's kind of a natural fit for them to re-engage in college, or is that even a good idea?
It depends on the person, and that sounds like a cop-out. But as long as people want to learn something new, I have no problem with how they figure out how they're going to learn about it. The more you learn, the less you know. And you can pay, if you're privileged enough to pay for an advanced degree, go for it. Yep. The best students I've had, the most curious, the most interested students I've had tend to be the ones who are adults. And by adults, I mean not the 18 to 22-year-old population of college students. Yeah. Because they've been working for a while. They know the grind. And when they show up in that class, they only have 3 hours of free time away from their job, away from their spouse, maybe away from their kids. And now they're realizing, I have to be super focused on this class. And this is my me time. So they are all in. Yeah. Students, on the other hand, traditional ones, I was this way. You come into a college classroom when you're 20 years old and you're just... This could go on forever.
Got to hit the dining hall. Got to get my grub.
Right. And if that cuts into my class, it cuts into my class. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, my undergrad at Cornell, we had in our Psych 101 class, this was just one class that I took, Intro to Psychology, 1,600 students. If I didn't show up in that class, nobody was going to know it. No one was taking attendance in a 50-minute lecture where there's 1,600 students.
Yeah.
But if Mike Thomas doesn't show up in my intro to video class, you better know I'm going to know it. And if I don't see him for a week, that's when I send the message out. Hey,
you'll be pumped because I wasn't distracting the class, but you'll also be like, show up to class.
Sure. I mean, I got to do my part just to play the game.
Right.
Like,
that's right.
Dear Mike, I am so concerned.
Yeah.
No, the adults, and this goes back to the don't let your schooling interfere with your education. When I was doing my research on The Wire, the HBO show, for my dissertation, I remember talking to Edward Burns, one of the writers of the show, and he had the line that the creator of the show, David Simon, would use all the time. So clearly the writers were literally on the same page with this, which was kids are going to learn. It's just a question of where, right? The kids that you watch in the TV show The Wire, aren't going to end up in college, but they're going to get an education. The adults you're talking about who may want to return to school, maybe they just want an education that doesn't come from the workplace that grinds them into a nub. Yeah. And it just makes them feel underappreciated and just like a cog in a big wheel. And so if they want to go to grad school, I remember sitting with a colleague at Syracuse University, and I was talking to him. He'd been in academia for 25 years after working in Hollywood for 20 or 25 years. And my thought was to him, why are we accepting these students? It's kind of dishonest of us to just take their money. And he said, if they want to take a year off of life to come join us for grad school for a year, for a degree, who are we to judge? I thought, all right, that's a good point. Yeah. Why are we going to spend that kind of money on them? Or to have them spend that kind of money on us? Well, they want to, and they need a break from life. Oh my God, especially the last 5 or 6 years, right? This is March 2025. We're recording this. COVID might seem to be in our rearview mirror, but it's also not. We are still feeling the effects of that.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. I again, back to what you said earlier about like human to human connection and the desire for people to be around. I mean, I remember when I was on campus, I was involved in so many of the clubs on campus. Like I was in a musical one year, and then I was doing a Bible study club, and I had, there was this volunteer program thing I was a part of with the service scholars. There were all these things that I was involved with. And when I think back to college, respectful to all the work that all the professors put into the curriculum, I really don't remember for you I do, because we had some fun classes, but for the most of the classes, I really don't remember one day of actual work or the tactics or the things that I was doing in the classroom. Yeah. But I remember all the relationships. I remember all the club meetings, like all the things that we did on the extracurricular side that really did help shape, who I am today, what I'm doing. But again, I know that there are older people that feel like they either missed the boat or that they have been grinded down to that stub, and it's like, well, now what? I was promised this thing, or they went through a divorce, or they went through the death of their parents, or something has happened that has traumatically hit them, where now it's, man, you only live once. It's time. It's time for me to put my boots on and go do what I'm called to do, and they don't feel like they have the resources to go do that, whether it's financial or it's experience or whatever.
Yeah, and this may sound like a cop-out too, but I don't have the capacity or the power to make it affordable for them. Yeah. And I lament that. But hearing you say that, there are a lot of circumstances that change people's behaviors, that if that's a catalyst for them wanting to do something different, to pivot out of their current work, they're living examples, especially in Rochester. It's everywhere. Yeah. You just got to find those people.
Yeah. I feel like we could talk forever. In fact,
I'm just clearing my throat, man. We're just getting cracking.
We're going to keep recording. I think I'll do like a standard close here in a couple of minutes, but this has been awesome, super informative. We have one of our favorite parts of the podcast is our rapid fire hot seat questions. So you are supposed to get nervous and sweaty and the, who wants to be a millionaire lights come down, doon, doon, doon. I mean, this is the moment. So, are you ready? These are like 1 to 2 word quick responses, rapid fire.
And by 1 to 2, you mean I can bloviate for like 30 words, like a minute or two?
I'm not sure what bloviate means, but that sounds great. All right, here we go. I'm just kidding. Well, I'm not really kidding, but we'll put bloviate right here. Definition.
With the bouncing ball? With the pronunciation?
Yes. All right, here we go. Favorite TV show of all time?
The Wire, HBO.
Easy. What's the most overrated movie of all time?
Of all time, I can't tell you, but in the last few years that I saw, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
If you could be a character in any show, who would you be?
Leo McGarry, The West Wing, the president's chief of staff.
Wow. All right. That was a quick answer. It's hot. Fire. You're right. I got it.
So it's rapid fire answers, not rapid fire questions? Sorry.
Morning run or evening run?
Oh, depends with whom, right? Okay. So morning run, which I've done with you.
Wonderful.
Ended up with coffee afterwards. You promised me there's coffee and breakfast afterwards, I'll say morning run. You promised me dinner and beer afterwards, evening run.
I feel like beer post run is just it's a necessity.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, especially with the weather turning now, sitting outside,
It's wonderful.
wind in our hair.
Yeah, right.
What's so funny? Keep
Nothing.
going.
No, I'm
Rude.
I'm there. In fact, one of my friends just went to Turkey and did the hair transplant thing.
Oh,
It's like $2,500. I mean, you got to get there, but
yeah.
world class.
Wow.
Anyway, if you're struggling with
What?
baldness,
I'm not struggling with it.
okay, no struggle at all. That was my next question. Are you struggling with baldness? So we'll move on to the next
great.
one. What do we got here? What's playing in your headphones when you run?
So no longer do I run with headphones.
Okay.
When I was training actively for 5Ks, when I let my body go to hell for the first 15 years after high school, I know this is rapid fire. This is not going to be rapid fire.
That's okay.
I would train for 5Ks, and then I would train for a little more than that, but not a half marathon. I would listen to the same 6 songs over and over again. There was
Wow.
Springsteen, The Killers, Eminem, Arcade Fire, Young the Giant, and the Traveling Wilburys. These same 6 songs over and over and over again. And I would run with that playing in my ears.
Wow.
And that was my jam. And if you look at my playlist, it's literally called Run, which is not inspired. Anyway, the last year, I've run 3 half marathons. My wife thinks I have another full marathon in me. I'm not sure I do mentally.
Whoa.
'Cause psychologically, that's a lot. I've done that twice. But those 3 half marathons, I decided to do without any music, without any AirPods.
Just raw dogging it.
Raw dogging it, trying to take it all in, all the senses. I want the smell of the run.
I hear you.
I want the sounds.
Yeah.
I want to talk to the person next to me. And here's what I lament, Mike, that during those races, there were so many people with the headphones in.
Yeah.
Like part of that bond, connecting with people, like we've been talking about for the last 3 hours, has it been 3 hours, is talking to them during the run. You're sharing an experience with them.
Yeah.
You're tackling that hill together. And yet, more than half of them are just plugged in and they don't want to be bothered. Oh, and that kills me.
Yeah.
So I'm not listening to anything these days, intentionally.
The grand irony of my marathon experience in LA was I think I was maybe at mile 18 and my phone died, my Apple Watch died, and I was raw dogging it.
How'd you do with that transition?
Well, I hated, once I hit mile 20, I just wanted to die in general. But
Did you bonk?
I don't know what that means.
Bonk means you hit the wall in a race.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah. I bonked in mile 24 of my first marathon, and it was a bad scene. The guy who was pacing me, my great buddy Ron, who was running with me the whole way, he was giving me tough love.
Oof.
Like, go to that tree, and we're going to walk from that tree, and we're going to run to that telephone pole, and then we're going to walk from that telephone pole to the next tree. And I'm just like, leave me alone. I had all this training, and now I've been crushing this race for 24 miles, and now I hit the wall.
You got all these people on the side cheering for you, and you're like, shut up, leave me alone.
That's exactly what happened. Yeah. The next year, I bonked in mile 20, and I was banking time, which is not advised, where I was trying to save time by running faster early. And I thought, I'm crushing it. I'm doing so much better than the year before. I hit the wall at mile 20, and I have people looking at me, seeing the name. Hey, buddy, you got this. And I'm thinking exactly what you thought. Shut up.
Oh, dude.
I was pissed.
And they're so nice. They're so kind to be out there, but you're just like...
And it was a cold, rainy day in Corning, and I'm yelling to myself to yell to them, shut up.
Yeah.
I mean, how rude am I?
Well, that wasn't as rapid fire, but that was good. I'm happy that we ran that journey together on that question.
I see what you did.
Who would you play in? Who would play you in a movie of your life? Who would be the actor that would play Todd Sodano?
I think before the beard came about, the inevitable answer / comparison would be Stanley Tucci.
Ah, yes. Very good.
Because we're Italian. That's the only reason.
Of course. I was hoping you were going to say
reason.
like Denzel or someone.
Is he Italian? I'm not sure he is.
I don't think so.
A Denzel.
A Denzeli. Okay. Last one. My favorite question. What are you most proud of? Got him.
Roll credits.
Thanks so much.
In my career, I've done many things that I'm very proud of. Writing my award-winning dissertation on my favorite TV show, which sounds like, this is why higher ed's under fire, because people are writing about, BS topics. I was invited because of that to speak at Harvard Law School once, and I loved that. That was really something else. But when I think of the things that I'm most proud of, I could say my students, but that's really hokey.
Yep.
Yourself included. If I'm being specific about it, I officiated a student's wedding, two students' weddings, or wedding that they got together in my class, and it might have been on the trip that you had taken to New York City.
Yep.
Phil and Katie, and that was just really special. I was at a transitional point in my life. It was a really, really interesting time for me.
Yeah.
My marriage had just ended, and I thought, I feel like a failure. I don't know where I am in the world. And I bump into this guy, Phil, who is kind of my nemesis in the classroom.
Shout out, Phil.
You were kind of the guy who would get on my nerves in a playful way. He got under my skin. And I saw him at a bar after I moved to my new neighborhood, and he invited me to play softball with him. And my first and second and third thoughts were no, no, and no. So I finally joined him the following week, and I've been on that team ever since. In fact, just yesterday, I took over as manager of this squad.
Whoa.
A good 9 years later. But they asked me, Phil and Katie, to officiate their wedding. And it was the most touching, beautiful, kind of vulnerable thing I think I've done in my career. And that's what I'm most proud of.
I love that. Yeah. You have a lot to be proud of. I am beyond grateful. I hope that has come across on the episode today. Find your people and hang on to them. I think that life has enough challenges, and again, all of us are not always in crummy seasons, but certainly there will be crummy seasons. And I think even what you just said, just you're in a season personally, but then something else from the fruit of your labor has come back out in the open and then ends up serving you from you. And again, you're not going to think of it that way, but it's like, it's a beautiful thing that can happen in that way.
And I think Brene Brown, an overquoted, overused reference, still is true when she says that something to the effect of what you're experiencing now is going to be somebody else's playbook. And I that's the advice I impart to people all the time, which is you're going through it right now, you're in the thick of it right now, but everything you're doing right now is going to be part of the playbook that you share with somebody else.
Yeah.
When they're going through it.
So be generous. Don't just use your experiences for yourself, but step out, share your story. I hope that you guys found this incredibly valuable. And thank you so much for tuning in to the In Good Company podcast, where we believe that the best parts in business happen in good company. Thanks so much.